The first sound was the rope's creak, a slow turning, then absolute silence. No one cried out, no voice cursed her. They simply watched as dozens of her own people, warriors, elders, even the women who once braided her hair, formed a crooked half-circle. Barefoot, she left the ground. Her name was Neil, her crime, shame, her punishment, death by her own kin. Hung from the cottonwood with hands bound, eyes wide open. She hadn't begged, not when they dragged her here, not even when her younger brother turned his face away. The betrayal had killed something deep inside her, long before the rope pressed into her throat. The last vision she held before darkness claimed it was a sky, too vast, too blue, a world that didn't care what they'd done. By dusk, the crowd had vanished. The rope swung gently. Her body hung limp, long black hair drifting like tattered ribbons. Birds did not come. The wind stayed still. Then came the sound of hooves, slow, uncertain. A lone horse emerged through the trees, bearing a dust-worn cowboy who didn't belong to any tribe. His hat brim hid his face. A rifle hung loosely across his back. He hadn't come looking for her. He'd meant only to find water. But when he saw the figure swaying from the tree, he stopped, cold, stunned. He dismounted, staring, breath catching. Not because he'd never seen death, but because this didn't look like justice. It looked like abandonment. He moved slowly under that cottonwood, and then he saw it. Her fingers twitched, just barely. He froze, then moved with purpose, knife flashing. The rope cut clean, and she dropped into his arms like a ghost reluctant to return. Her chest jerked. She gasped once, twice, as if waking from a long dream, lungs clawing for air. He knelt in the cold dirt, his hands shaking. "Easy," he whispered. But she couldn't hear him. Her eyes rolled back. She clung to nothing. He looked up. No one had come. No one had stayed. And then he understood she wasn't meant to live. That was why they'd left her here to swing. He didn't know how long he stayed, holding her as the sun sank lower, its last light setting her skin aglow like a pale apparition. Her breathing came in dry, wet gasps, lungs arguing that she deserved another chance. Gently, he laid her on pine needles, tore a strip from his shirt, and wiped blood from her mouth. The rope's red mark was fierce and raw, but her throat was not broken. That stunned him. She should have died. Someone had measured that rope just long enough to hurt, not kill. He scanned the hills, no movement, no tracks. Whoever did this wanted her to suffer, not vanish. He checked her pulse, weak but present. She needed water. He scooped from his canteen, lifted her head, and let cool drops touch her lips. She flinched with each swallow, and when she coughed, it sounded like a death rattle. But it was life. It was fight. He leaned closer. "You hear me?" he asked, voice quiet but firm. "You hold on, girl. You didn't come back just to leave again." Her eyes fluttered, but she saw nothing. He didn't know her name, her crime, or her tribe. He only knew she wasn't safe here, not with no one left to claim her. Whoever turned on her could return, and if they did, he would be next. Yet he didn't saddle his horse. He didn't ride away. Instead, he built a fire at the tree's base and wrapped her in his coat, watching the sky shift from copper to indigo as coyotes howled in the distance. Somewhere inside her chest, a sound stirred, a scratch, a whisper, a memory waking from a deep sleep. He leaned in. "You don't have to tell me what they did, but if you wake up, you tell me who you are." She didn't answer, but her hand twitched toward her throat. He watched quietly, patient. He wasn't here to fix her, just not to let her be forgotten. The fire's crackle was the first thing she noticed, then the ache in her throat, like embers burning beneath her skin. She tried to move, arms wouldn't respond, chest barely lifted, as if she needed permission to breathe. She opened her eyes half-lidded, seeing blurred shapes, golden glow, and a man, pale-hatted, rough-coated, miles-traveled boots. Inside, her heart stoked against fear. She tried to sit up, but pain dropped her back again. He stirred, glanced at her, and said gently, "You're awake." "Didn't think you'd be. Not after what they—" He paused, not finishing. She blinked, throat raw, mind racing for words. "Why?" she rasped, one word, rough as sandpaper. He didn't answer at first. Then he poured water into a tin cup, brought it to her mouth. She sipped, trembling. He sat back, waited, and said, "Why'd I cut you down?" "Couldn't ride past it. That ain't something a man can forget." She stared. His gentle voice didn't match the rest of him. She'd expected cruelty, maybe mockery. Instead, he treated her like something sacred. He asked, "You got a name?" She hesitated, forced it out. "Neil." He nodded, the word as powerful as a prayer. "I'm Callum." They said nothing more. They sat in that flickering silence, her throat scorched, her mind aching, his eyes flicking to the rope coil by the base, both fearing it might move again. She didn't trust him yet. She barely trusted herself. But he'd never asked about her crime. He hadn't judged, and that made her want to survive. By the second day, Neil could sit up, though every move felt like dragging bone across stone. The bruises darkened across her throat. Her voice came out in cracks. Callum had done nothing but care for her. He'd caught fish, boiled bitter herbal brew, tossed his coat over her at night. He'd asked for nothing, except maybe her recovery. That morning, she sat with knees drawn in as he reached for the rope. He measured it, coiled it, only to stop as she spoke with broken clarity. "Don't." He stared, astonished. "You wanted to stay?" she asked quietly. "I wanted to rot," she said. "Not buried, not burned. Rot, like they left me." Callum didn't argue. He stepped back and nodded like a soldier taking orders. Neil watched through a storm of memories. Faces had turned away, the elder tying the noose, women whispering that she dishonored her blood by loving outside her tribe. She'd said nothing then, but now her body trembled with words she hadn't let herself speak. "They said I had broken the sacred path," she whispered. "I didn't break anything. I just chose love where they wanted silence." He didn't flinch. His gaze stayed on her. "I'm not giving you pity," he said. "Just space to speak, if you want it." So she did. "I don't want to beg for life," she said. "I don't want your pity." They moved camp on the fifth night, just far enough to put the cottonwood behind, but not so far they could forget. Callum led the horse, letting her walk when she could. When her legs failed, he carried her, strong, gentle, without protest. They said nothing. She didn't feel the silence, but the quiet had changed. It was space, not suspicion. That evening, beside a fire in a rocky ravine, she asked what she'd never meant to ask. "What did you lose?" Callum poked the embers, sparks dancing. "What makes you think I lost something?" he asked softly. "You carry it," she said. He paused, eyes lowered. When he spoke, it was after a long moment. "Wife," he said quietly. "Years back, fever took her baby, then her." She blinked, not surprised. He carried that pain on his back. "I'm sorry," she offered. "I'm not," he said. "She was too good for this world, but it made me quiet, not sure what to say to people since." Neil nodded. "They hung me because I loved a man from outside my blood, a ranch hand, white. He left when they threatened him. I stayed. That was my mistake." Callum met her eyes, firelight flickering in them. "You think it was?" "I don't know." She swallowed hard. "But I never begged for that part. I don't regret." For the first time, he smiled, tentative, pained. "You're strong." "No," she said, low but certain. "I'm just still here." He didn't argue. That night, as the fire died, she watched him sleep upright, hand near his knife, not as threat, but as promise. And in her chest, the heaviness shifted, not gone, but softer, because someone had listened without judging. At sunrise, Neil slipped away without waking him. Her feet were unsteady but purposeful. She walked not fleeing, but breathing. She followed the river, to where it ran slow and deep, mist drifting above its surface. She stepped in, clothed, and sank to her knees until water rose to her shoulders. It wasn't ritual or prayer. It was washing, of sweat, blood, shame, the name pressed into her skin like someone else's. The river held her as she stood still and strong. She did not cry. She did not ask forgiveness. She just let the water hold her. Behind her, Callum's footsteps crunched. He paused at the bank, arms crossed, gaze turned away, out of respect, out of understanding. Then she spoke. I don't want to go back to them. I wouldn't let you, he said softly, but I also won't decide where you go. And in that moment, she was more than her past, more than anyone's verdict. She was still here, washed, free, and no longer hanging between shame and mercy, but walking into her own story. The water lapped softly against her shoulders as she turned. Why are you still here? She asked, voice barely rising above the creek song. He hesitated. Because you're still fighting, he finally answered. That's rare. Neil stared at him, unsure how to understand a man who didn't possess her name or story, didn't fix her or judge her. He merely watched, stood steady. That steadiness settled over her, like a weight heavier than the rope had ever been. I don't trust you, she said, plain as stone. You don't have to, he replied. I'm not asking for that. She stepped out of the river, water slicking her hair and weighing her clothes. He faced away as she wrung out her dress and turned sun to dry her skin. She didn't say thank you, not yet, but she didn't send him away either. As they walked back to camp, she walked beside him, not behind. That night, she neither curled away nor closed her eyes. Instead, she drew her knees close, staring at the stars. For the first time, nighttime wasn't a warning. It was space. Space that breathed hope into her chest, whispering that more than survival might be waiting. Maybe belonging, maybe a life without rescue. 7 days passed on wind scented with juniper and dust. By then, Neil sharpened a tree branch into a crude spear, while Callum repaired his saddle straps. Their silence had softened into routine, the kind shared by two who needed nothing to prove. When he muttered a curse after pricking his finger, she, startled, jolted herself upright to laugh. Sharp, short, and startled again at how joy felt dangerous. He lifted his head. Took me by surprise, he said. Wind don't sound like a woman who's been holding her breath for years. Her voice came a smirk. And you weren't what I expected. Did you expect someone who wanted something? She looked at him quietly. I did, he said. I wanted to ride past and forget her, but I couldn't. She nodded, words soft as river water. They said I was unclean, that I broke the circle by loving someone wrong. He didn't flinch. You ever think maybe they just can't handle a woman who chose herself? She blinked, off guard. I've walked through enough circles of judgment to know it. Silence folded around them. Solid as earth. She squinted into the sun. If they come, again, let them find you there, not me hanging. He nodded once, wordless. She handed him her tin cup. It felt closer than any promise. At dusk, a drag of drumbeat rose across the hills, a heartbeat from stone. Neil froze. Callum scanned the ridge. It's them, she said. My tribe, but it's not for me. Someone's died, or they want everyone to think so. Callum moved for his rifle, but she stopped him. Not yet, she said. Tonight is for listening. So he stood focused like a question. When the riders came at dawn, 3 shapes in dust and silence, Neil didn't hide. She walked toward the clearing until she stood beside Callum. The first rider dismounted and paused before her. Face painted in fading ceremony, eyes sharp as river stone. You live? I did, she replied quietly. But the earth gave me back. The second face, a younger man, the one who trusted her before. Speak her name, he demanded. She stared him down. Speak my name, and I will not answer. He lowered his eyes. The first man glared at Callum. You took her. Callum met every step of that accusation. I found her hanging like meat, he said. Neil stepped forward. You had your justice, your ceremony. Now you have nothing but ashes. I belong to no one. The wind stilled. He shook his head. Then she said, If the land forgets me, I will remember myself. They left without another word. Callum exhaled. Neil stirred. They walked back to the fire as dawn slipped into sky. It's done, he asked. Not done, she replied quietly. It's begun. When she woke next morning, dew clung to her lashes and the world was washed in silver stillness. Callum was packing quietly, not waking her. She rose, bare feet sure on cold dirt. Going, she asked. He paused, didn't meet her eyes. You didn't take a place, she said. You made one. That's different. He half smiled. You still don't trust me. No, she said, but I don't fear you either, and that's more than most men. His hand still held dust and sweat. You're heading east? She looked at the horizon. No path, every path. Where no one knows my name. Let them meet me before they measure me. I'll be alone. I'll be with trees, he said, stepping forward. He handed her a pouch tied with red thread. Inside, the curling coil of rope, the one that nearly ended her. Why? She whispered. Because only you get to decide what it meant, he answered. Her eyes shimmered, but they held. She tied the pouch to her waist. Long moments passed. Then she pressed her forehead to his. Not a kiss, not possession, just presence. You didn't save me, she whispered. You just didn't let me rot. He nodded. They released each other, stepping back. She turned first, walking toward the ridge where earth glimmered gold. He watched her go, not calling, not stopping. When she disappeared over the hill, the wind shifted, carrying her scent one last time. She hadn't needed rescue or love. What she needed was to be seen, and in this story, she was